how emotionally connected he is as a guy, and just humble, very intelligent, and he is a guy who loves his fans. So trust me, he appreciates you guys being here, and he loves the interaction, and he loves the support of you guys for sure. So without further ado, let me bring out Cole Sprouse. Hey, buddy. Have fun, be easy on him, okay?
Hey guys. Is this supposed to say on or no?
You have to put your name in the bat.
What's that for?
Yeah, so unfortunately, like a name, it's raffle questions.
Hi everybody. There's a lot more you
So
can
you
see
can only
there.
ask a question if your name is on.
Flattered, truly. All right. There's some questions. These lights are a lot brighter too, so I can't really see you guys' faces. But I imagine they're all beautiful. All right.
Hi Cole, my name is Carla, and
Hi, Carla.
I just wanted to ask you, because we all know that the season finale of season 3 was insane. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were when you read the script for the first time.
Okay. This is an interesting question because the ending was written on the night that we did it, which is usually not the way I'm sure a lot of that stuff is done. The ending was in response to me asking not to be naked standing in the woods in the rain at 4 a.m. I thought it was a casual thing to ask. And then we got the revisions. And I was dead. No, not really. Yeah, honestly, our show is kind of this fluctuating entity, and
What number are you?
we're so used to receiving the script the night of or the day of that we're not really too shocked by anything that happens at this point. Everyone's coming back with an evil twin or from the grave or as a ghost or whatever it is. So at this point, yeah, we really don't know what's happening in season 4. So that scene is very much left up to interpretation, and so it's really up to you guys to decide how you want to interpret it. Hey,
My name is Maddie. I just want to say I love you so much.
go on.
My question was, did you, when you knew that you were going to be Jughead Jones on Riverdale, did you ever think about that? Like you were reading Archie comics as a kid, and that now you were going to play someone, the real life Jughead Jones, and not
Yeah,
sorry,
like
and
a
not
two-dimensional
like,
character.
not a comic version of.
Yeah. I actually, it's quite intimidating to get cast as a comic character because a lot of comic fans are really sensitive if the character is going to be a kind of accurate representation of the character they remember and have nostalgia for. And Archie Comics has been around for 75 years, so there was a huge fan base for a lot of these characters. And in very many senses, Jughead was kind of the fan favorite even from the comics. So then it was really a question of, okay, how do I take the fundamental parts of Jughead within the digest and integrate it within the character? And that was hard, but the Archie Comics universe is such an open world, and it's not really bound by too much sense. So to have another version of Jughead out there, kind of the audience was primed for it. It didn't really seem like an intimidating interpretation to any people. And I think out of all the characters, Jughead is probably the most different from his digest personality. But I still think he carries around sort of the fundamental tenets of who he was in the digest. And yeah, I was excited to be able to tackle Jughead, which was great. But I'll admit, it is a little intimidating to know that you're walking into something that so many people love and hoping that they come along with you on the ride. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Ella.
Hi.
If we had 24 hours to live, what would you do?
Live? Oh, sensitive question. Yeah, I think just hang out with the people I love. Probably. Seems like the most sensible option. Or just get lost, like Amelia Earhart. Just create the quickest little treasure hunt that you can and go into some cavern somewhere in the world and be like, find me. Really poetic. Yeah, probably something like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, my name is Sydney, and I really have a question for you, so I'm asking for my friend.
Cool.
She's also in the audience. Her name is Madison.
Hi, Madison.
And then she wanted to know how your life of on the Sweet Life shaped you into your role for Truckerman.
Oh, that's a good question. It's kind of hard to say because it's a very different kind of role, and it's also a very different style of production. So The Sweet Life was a 30-minute comedic sitcom in front of a live audience. So every Friday we had people really there cheering us on. And it was so different. And we did that for, my brother and I both did that for 8 years. So, and then I took a big break because you can adopt a lot of inconsistent quirks in style and method from doing anything for 8 years. So it was actually more of a process of me forgetting a lot of the things that I had learned in that style of production in order to tackle Riverdale. I mean, it wasn't like a conscious process, but it was certainly something I had done. Sort of breaking those patterns was probably more of a process than carrying them with me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I was wondering if you could be any other character on Riverdale, who would you be?
I always liked the guys in the movies where they're at the bar and they're just sort of trying the top over and over again. Just polishing the top and trying it again. So I guess Pop. I think that would be fun. No problem.
Hi, my name is Raven. First of all,
Hi.
I wanted to say I love you so much and thank you for playing an amazing role.
Oh, thank you.
And second of all, I wanted to ask which cast member do you think is most like the character?
Mads. No. Whew, great question. It's interesting because I think by the time I met a lot of the cast, they had already been going through a process of adopting a kind of character. So the people that I had met in season 1 were already fashioning an identity into what they were going to play. And you carry a lot of that with you throughout the entire process. It's actually quite hard to stop thinking within that method mindset. But I think the person who is most like their character is probably Vegas. That actor just does a really good job of embodying a dog and really giving justice to that performance. And I think when contrasted against a dog like Hot Dog, who is relatively new to the acting game, it really shows the amount of experience that Vegas has, and I admire that actor very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was stupid.
Hi, I was wondering how you felt when you first got the role of Jughead.
Oh, I felt great. Yeah, it's great. It was a long auditioning process. When I went in to audition for the first time, it was probably 6 or 7 months before we actually had any indication if we had got the role. And it was a lot of different auditions in front of a lot of different people. And I don't know if it was excitement because you don't really know what you're getting into even after you get the role, especially with network television. You're only really there for the pilot. You only really have read that part. Or it was just the relief that that whole auditioning process was finally over. But yeah, I was incredibly excited and then intimidated and nervous, and I think that's natural. I think you should always kind of follow your nerves when it comes to any professional pursuit, because that's the time you're going to challenge yourself the most. And I felt nervous, and I said, okay, let's do this. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Cassie, and
Hi,
I'm just
Cassie.
wondering what you think is going to happen to Jughead in season 5.
Well, I have season 5? Oh man. Or season 4? Season 4 or 5, I both know nothing about. I have no idea, if I'm being honest. I don't know if I haven't watched the finale yet. I have a very hard time watching myself. But I haven't watched the finale, but did they include the serpent and poison scene at the very end? Which scene was that? What was the last time you saw the poisons and the serpents? Okay, so there was originally a scene that was cut out where I pass over the reign of the gang to Tony, and I'm totally out of the serpents because Jughead's like pursuing his own thing, and it looks like they didn't go ahead with that. Okay. So a lot of serpent stuff, I guess. No, there was a big question as to whether Jughead should return to a kind of season 1 form. That wasn't ignoring the path that he had gone through season 2 and 3, but rather that the kind of outsider. There was much more of an archetype or a stereotype for a character in season 1, where it was like this well-trodden sort of angsty kid, lonely angsty writer kid path. And there was a conversation about returning to that form. And the dissolution of his leadership of the Serpents was kind of a way to say, hey, I'm going to focus on writing it myself and a lot of that stuff as Jughead. And so now, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Cole. My name's Madeline.
Hello,
And
Madeline.
I've been wondering, who is your main influence throughout your acting career, like your whole life?
Oh man, in terms of idolatry, I couldn't really tell you. But in terms of someone who has had the most impact on my acting career, it's without a doubt Dylan. And I mean, I don't mean that in sheerly an admiration way, which I do admire him, but because my entire career has been shaped as either being a twin or not being a twin. So it's inescapable to say that his presence next to me or as the same role has not influenced my career tremendously. It was the reason I started acting. It's the reason we continued acting for a while. It's the reason I'm Jughead now. I mean, yeah, there's no way to say it would be any other person but Dylan. Oh, you guys are really confusing that for a compliment, but yeah, let's keep it there. Hey, bud.
Hi, my name is Luca, and I'm wondering what your favorite color is.
Ooh, favorite color? Like a forest green. Yeah, we're the people with the forest green! Okay. Thanks, bud. Hey, thanks, man.
Hi, so do you know what movie you're going to be in next?
Oh yeah, I have a small part in a movie at the end of this month called Silk Road. It's an independent project, but it's a pretty cool character. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Megan, and I was wondering how it was like being 5 feet apart.
Oh, it was wonderful, and then very validating. And the cystic fibrosis audience really responded to it well, which was kind of the currency of what we were going for and the mission statement all along. So it was a very validating experience. Now, the actual process of shooting was kind of somber because we had to stay in character for much of it, and out of respect for cystic fibrosis, we didn't want to be treating it as a kind of jovial thing. So yeah, but you know, it really paid off, and Haley and I got along like two peas in a pod, and we were in New Orleans for 5 weeks, and it was a tough shoot, but it did well, and that's all we can really ask for.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Alexis.
Hey, Alexis.
Who is your favorite person to film with, KJ or Lily?
What about Cammy and Matt? You're like, just those two. Wow, you're going to get me in trouble, is really what it is. To be honest, I don't really film much with KJ. So I've had way more film time with Lily, so it'll probably be Lily, but I would love to film more with KJ. He and I get along so well, and we're laughing so constantly that it's a very enjoyable off-screen presence that we have. But we haven't really explored too much of like the actual Archie Jughead narrative that I think would be a lot of fun, like two buddies just going around and hanging out. So I don't know. I'd love to spend a little more time working with Cage. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Savannah, and I wanted to know, what's your biggest regret in life?
Jeez, man, all these questions. What are you most ashamed of? What do you hate about yourself? What's your biggest regret? My biggest regret is having to answer this question, I suppose. I'm just kidding. Biggest regrets. Wow. I think in a professional sense, even giving consideration for a single moment that I shouldn't go to college. Because a lot of people have this illusory idea of momentum and a strike while the iron is hot in acting. And a lot of people were going, when I was like, yeah, I want to go to college, a lot of people were saying like, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, your career is going to stop and all this stuff, and you got to keep pushing the ball and getting to work, and we got all these connections for you, and like, it's time to go and meet with these blah, 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 blah. And it just didn't end up being true. And I went to school, and university was the best thing I could have done. And I ended up regretting, even for a single moment in time, not having the confidence to tell those people to shove off. So maybe that. I wouldn't know if that, I don't think that's the biggest regret, but that's certainly a regret of mine. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Abby.
Hi, Abby.
My question is, do you prefer Jughead investigating things alone or more of the Jughead and Betty investigative duo?
Water.
What do you hate about the narratives? Jeez. I like when you investigate stuff alone, actually, or with Skeet. I think it's fun because it plays out that interesting father-son dynamic. Because the original father-son dynamic that we were sort of turning on its head was super amateur older cop and incredibly well-versed cerebral deputy, which is, I mean, it's usually the other way around. But Jughead was originally written as a super outsider character and was kind of the primary detective. And then Betty has just absorbed the qualities of all of our characters. I don't mind, like, it's incredibly fun to work on both those narratives, but I would like to see Jughead sort of dealing with his own stuff as an outsider again. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
How do you feel about being the narrator of the show?
I love it. In fact, I kind of wish there was more of it. Again, like, I don't know if you guys remember, but in the